Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Light and Shadow podcast. I am Gray, your spiritual mentor and guide, and today we are diving into one of the most difficult questions humans have ever asked. Why do bad things happen to good people? Why does injustice exist? And is there really such a thing as punishment or universal justice? If you've ever been wronged and watched the person who hurt you face no consequences, you know how this feels. The anger, the disbelief, the sense that the universe is fundamentally unfair. If you've ever suffered while seemingly cruel people prosper, you have asked, where is the justice? Where is karma? Why am I being punished when I have done nothing wrong? If you've ever fought for your rights, for truth, for what's fair, and lost, or waited years with nothing changing, you have wondered, is there any order to this universe at all? Or is it just random chaos where the powerful win and the innocent suffer? Today we're going to explore these questions from a perspective that might challenge everything you have been taught about punishment, justice, and consequences. Because here's what I've come to understand through both spiritual study and direct experience. There is no punishment. There is no external judge dispensing justice. There is only energy, and energy always, inevitably, seeks balance. The question is not, will justice be served? The question is, do you understand how energy actually works? And can you trust the process of balancing even when you cannot see it? This is going to be difficult. This is going to challenge your ideas about fairness, about right and wrong, about what you deserve. But if you can say with me, this perspective will free you from the torture of waiting for justice that looks the way you think it should. Let's start by dismantling the concept of punishment itself. Because this is where most suffering around injustice begins. From childhood, we're taught a transactional model of justice. Do bad things, get punished. Do good things, get rewarded. The universe or God is keeping score. Eventually, everyone gets what they deserve. This creates an expectation. If I suffer, I must have done something wrong. If someone wrongs me and doesn't suffer, the universe is broken. But what if this entire framework is a human construct that has nothing to do with how reality actually operates? Problem 1. Who decides what deserves punishment? Human law? That varies by culture, time period, and who holds power. What's legal isn't always moral. What's illegal isn't always wrong. Religious doctrine? Every religion has different rules, different sins, different punishments. Which one is correct? Your personal sense of justice? That's shaped by your wounds, your culture, your limited perspective. There is no universal arbiter sitting in judgment deciding who deserves what. Problem 2. The punishment model requires an external judge. It assumes God, the universe, karma, something out there that's watching, scoring, and eventually balancing the scales. But quantum physics show us this. Consciousness creates reality. You are not separate from the universe. There is no out there. If you are the universe experiencing itself, who is punishing whom? Problem 3, it creates victim consciousness. When bad things happen, you think, I'm being punished. What did I do to deserve this? When bad people prosper, you think, why aren't they being punished? The universe is unfair to me. Both positions make you powerless, either guilty and deserving of suffering or victimized by an unique universe. Here's the reframe. There is no punishment. There are only consequences of energy in motion. Everything is energy. Every action, every thought, every emotion. Energy moving through the quantum field. And energy always seeks balance. not as moral judgment, but as natural law, like gravity, like thermodynamics, like the conservation of energy. When you throw a ball up, it comes down. Not as punishment for throwing it, but as inevitable consequence of how energy and gravity works. When you send out energy through actions, thoughts, intentions, that energy moves through the field and eventually returns in some form as balance. Let's get into the mechanics of how energy seeks balance, because understanding this changes everything. Physics tells us energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only change form. When you harm someone, you're not creating bad energy out of nothing. You are directing existing energy in a particular pattern with a particular frequency. That energy doesn't disappear. It has to go somewhere. It has to balance. And everything vibrates at a frequency. Your thoughts, emotions, actions all have electromagnetic signatures. Like attracts like. This isn't mystical. It's physics. Frequencies that match, resonate, and amplify each other. If you're operating at the frequency of hatred, violence, greed, you attract experiences that match that frequency as a resonance. If you're operating at the frequency of love, integrity, compassion, you attract experiences that match that frequency, not as a reward, but as a resonance. You don't get what you deserve. You get what you are vibrating at. Every action creates ripples in the quantum field, like dropping a stone in water. Those ripples move outward, interact with other ripples, and eventually circle back to the source. This is what Asian traditions called karma. Not a cosmic scorekeeper, but the inevitable return of energy you have set in motion. The universe isn't punishing you. Consequences of your own energy are finding their way back to you. And here's where it gets tricky. The return of energy is not always immediate. Sometimes consequences are instant. Sometimes they take years. Sometimes they take lifetimes, if you believe in reincarnation. Now, why the delay? Your energy ripples interact with billions of other ripples. The path back isn't direct. It's filtered through an incomprehensibly complex web of causation. And energy moves in its own time. What needs to align for balance to occur might take years to organize. Sometimes the delay itself is part of the process. The waiting teaches something that instant consequence wouldn't. This is why people say karma is slow, but it never forgets. It's not slow by choice. It is moving through an infinitely complex field of interconnection. Energy doesn't always return in the exact form it was sent. You might harm someone physically, but the balancing doesn't come as physical harm to you. It comes as psychological torment, or relational destruction, or loss of peace, or karmic debt in future experiences, or soul-level consequences you cannot see. You might think someone got away with it because you don't see external consequences. But energy always balances. You just might not see how. Sometimes you're experiencing consequences that are not about your personal actions. They're about collective karma. You're born into a war-torn country. You are part of a marginalized group facing systematic oppression. You inherit generational trauma. This is not punishment for what you personally did. It is the balancing of collective energy, systems, societies, ancestral patterns seeking equilibrium. You're playing a role in a much larger energetic rebalancing that goes beyond individual cause and effect. Now let's address the core question. If energy always balances, why does injustice exist? Why do innocent people suffer while cruel people prosper? From the human perspective, you see a limited slice of time. You see this lifetime, this moment, this situation. From the soul perspective, this is one scene in an eternal existence. What looks like injustice in this moment might be perfect balance across multiple lifetimes, dimensions, or levels of reality you can't perceive. The person suffering unjustly now might be balancing energy from a past life, or choosing a difficult incarnation for rapid soul growth, or playing a role in someone else's karma coming to fruition, or learning lessons that require this exact experience. Now, the person causing harm without apparent consequence might be accumulating karmic debt that will balance later, operating in an illusion of success that's actually soul-level poverty, or setting up their own future suffering, or already suffering internally in ways you cannot see. You do not have the full picture. You are watching one chapter of a multi-volume story and judging the entire narrative. When you see someone who has caused harm winning, they might be wealthy, powerful, seemingly happy. Now the question, are they actually winning? External success does not equal internal peace. They might have money, status, influence, and be completely disconnected from their soul, living in fear and paranoia, probably unable to trust or love genuinely, or experiencing inner torment you cannot see, or building a house of cards that will eventually collapse. Energy balances internally and externally. You might be seeing external prosperity while missing the internal devastation. Sometimes, injustice serves a purpose in the larger pattern. Not because the universe is cruel, but because it catalyzes collective awakening. Great injustices throughout history have sparked movements that elevated collective consciousness. The suffering of the few became the catalyst for liberation of the many. It accelerates soul growth. Souls who choose difficult incarnations, experiencing injustice, oppression, or suffering, often evolve faster than souls who choose easy paths. It reveals what needs healing. Injustice shows us where systems are broken, where consciousness is still operating from separation and fear, and where collective shadow exists. And it tests your faith and resilience. How you respond to injustice determines your evolution. Do you become bitter? Or do you deepen in compassion? Do you give up? Or do you strengthen in purpose? This doesn't make injustice okay. It doesn't excuse harm. It doesn't mean you shouldn't fight for justice, but it reframes suffering from meaningless cruelty to purposeful, even if painful, part of a larger pattern. So, let's say you've been wronged, you're fighting for your rights, years pass, nothing changes. Why? The systems resisting change are massive. Human law, societal structures, collective consciousness. They move slowly. The greater the injustice, the more entrenched it is, the longer it takes to shift. You're up against not just individuals, but entire energy patterns. Patriarchy, racism, corruption, exploitation. These are collective frequencies that have been reinforced for centuries. Shifting them requires massive energetic reorganization. Sometimes you're planting seeds you will not see grow. Your fight for justice might not resolve in your lifetime, but it shifts the field for others. The energy you put into justice work ripples forward. The timing might not be about you. The resolution might be waiting for other pieces to align, people to be in place, consciousness to shift, systems to be ready for transformation. Sometimes the lesson is the wait. What the waiting teaches you: patience, faith, resilience, detachment from outcome, might be as important as the justice itself. And here's the danger. If you make your peace contingent on external justice being served, you are giving away your power. For example, you might say, I will not be okay until they are punished, or I cannot move on until I get what I'm owed, or the universe owes me justice. This keeps you in victim consciousness, bound to the person or situation that harmed you, unable to reclaim your energy and move forward. True justice might be internal. Healing yourself, reclaiming your power, finding peace regardless of whether external consequences occur. Now let's go deeper into the fundamental law. Energy always balances, always, no exception. The universe operates on principles, laws that cannot be violated. The law of gravity, the law of thermodynamics, the law of conservation of energy, entropy and order. Energy-seeking balance is as fundamental as any of these. This is not a belief. It is not a hope. It is how reality works. When energy is imbalanced, the system will reorganize until balance is restored. This might happen quickly or slowly, visibly or invisibly, but it will happen. Now, how you see balance happening? Sometimes balance is instant. You lie, you get caught immediately. You help someone, they help you right back. Cause and effect are clearly visible. Sometimes years pass. The person who harmed you seems to thrive. Then suddenly, health crisis, financial collapse, relationship implosion, complete life unraveling. Sometimes there are no visible external consequences, but the person suffers internally, like guilt, shame, disconnection from soul, inability to experience genuine love or peace. The price they pay is invisible to you, but very real to them. Sometimes, individual energy balances through collective experience. For example, the greedy CEO doesn't personally suffer, but the company collapses. The corrupt politician doesn't face legal consequences, but the entire system eventually reforms. Sometimes balance happens beyond this lifetime, in the afterlife, in future incarnations, in dimensions you cannot perceive. Just because you cannot see it doesn't mean it's not happening. You're not just a passive recipient of balanced or imbalanced energy. You are an active participant in the balancing process. When you're harmed, you can choose to perpetuate the imbalance by harming others in response, adding more chaotic energy to the system. Or you can choose to stop the cycle by healing yourself, transmuting the pain into wisdom and sending a different frequency back into the field. Your healing is part of the universal balancing. When you transform pain into compassion, you are actively participating in energy reorganization. When you cause harm, you can deny it, justify it, avoid responsibility, but the energy still exists and will seek balance whether you acknowledge it or not. Or you can take accountability, make amends, do the inner work to transform the pattern, and consciously participate in rebalancing the energy. awareness and responsibility accelerate the balancing process. Ignorance and denial don't stop it, they just prolong it. Now, this is profound. Forgiveness is not condoning harm. Forgiveness is releasing your attachment to a specific form of balance. When you forgive, you're not saying what you did is okay. You're saying, I release the need to see you suffer in order for me to be okay. I trust that energy will balance according to universal law, and I am no longer tying my peace to witnessing your consequences. Forgiveness frees your energy from being bound to the perpetrator. It allows you to reclaim your power and move forward. The energy will still balance. Karma will still operate. But you're no longer trapped in the cycle, waiting, watching, needing to see it happen. Why an eye for an eye does not work? The old law, an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. Perfect balance, right? You harm me and I harm you. Wrong. It creates an endless cycle of harm. You harm me, I harm you back. Now your family harms my family in revenge. Now my community harms your community. The cycle never ends. True balance is not equal harm returned. True balance is transformation of the energy pattern itself. When harm occurs, the balancing isn't now you get harmed equally. The balancing is the pattern that created the harm is dissolved, healed, transformed so it doesn't perpetuate. This might look like the perpetrator awakening to their harm and genuinely changing, or the victim healing and no longer carrying the frequency of victimization, or the collective consciousness evolving so that type of harm becomes less likely, or the energy transmuting through forgiveness, compassion, and conscious choice. Justice is not revenge. Justice is restoration of harmony. So how do you live with this understanding? How do you navigate injustice and the wait for balance? Shift from victim to creator. Instead, this happened to me. I am powerless until external justice is served. You say this happened. I am choosing how to respond. I am reclaiming my power by healing, growing, and moving forward regardless of external circumstances. You cannot control whether visible justice occurs. You can control your relationship to what happened. Trust this process even when you cannot see it. Faith in universal law. Energy will balance. You don't need to see how or when. You just need to trust the fundamental law. Stop demanding it happen on your schedule, on your timeline. The universe operates on quantum time, not a human impatience. And stop insisting it balance the way you think it should. Energy might balance in ways you never imagined. And they might be more perfect than what you were demanding. And don't wait for justice to heal. Heal now. Reclaim your energy. Transmute the pain. Become whole, regardless of whether they face consequences. Protect yourself from ongoing harm. Justice doesn't mean you have to keep exposing yourself to someone who's hurting you while you wait for karma to kick in. If there's action you can take, legal, social, confrontational, and it comes from empowerment, not revenge, take it. But don't attach your peace to the outcome. The best revenge is becoming so aligned, so healed, so empowered that the harm no longer defines you. Your thriving is its own form of justice. And understand what you cannot see. The person who harmed you might be experiencing hell internally that you cannot perceive. Their apparent success might be a facade over deep misery. On soul level, you might have agreed to this experience before incarnation, not as punishment, but as an opportunity to specific growth. And know that this might be part of a pattern much bigger than this one situation. Like collective karma, ancestral healing, soul group lessons. You are seeing one pixel in a massive cosmic painting. Trust that the whole picture makes sense even if this pixel looks dark. There comes a moment when continuing to fight for external justice becomes self-harm. If you have done what you can do and nothing is changing, if the fight is consuming your life energy and preventing you from moving forward, if holding on is causing more suffering than letting go, then it might be time to release it. Not because justice doesn't matter. Not because what happened was okay. Not because your peace, your growth, your life matters more than watching someone get what you think they deserve. Letting go doesn't mean they won. It means you are no longer giving them power over your internal state. Energy will still balance. Karma will still operate. But you're free. And here's the ultimate realization. You can become the balancing force. Instead of waiting for justice, you can heal so thoroughly that you transmute the energy of harm into compassion. Use your experience to help others facing similar injustice. Channel your pain into creating systematic change. Become living proof that suffering doesn't have the final word. When you do this, you're not waiting for the universe to balance the scales. You are the universe balancing the scales. Remember, there is no punishment, only energy seeking balance. There is no external judge, only the inevitable return of energy patterns you have set in motion. Injustice exists because we are operating with limited perspective, seeing one moment, not the eternal pattern. Energy balancing is complex and takes time. Collective karma creates experiences beyond individual cause and effect. Sometimes injustice serves a purpose in the larger unfoldment. Injustice sometimes takes so long because systems resisting change are massive, because the timing involves factors you cannot see, because the lesson might be in the waiting itself, because you're planting seeds that will grow beyond your lifetime. Energy will balance, always, not as punishment or reward, but as a fundamental law. You might not see it. You might not see it in this lifetime, but it's as certain as gravity. Your power is not in controlling whether justice is served. Your power is in how you respond to injustice, in whether you heal or perpetuate harm, in whether you reclaim your energy or stay bound to waiting, or whether you trust the process even when you cannot see it. The universe is not unfair. The universe is perfect, but its perfection operates on scales and timelines beyond the human comprehension. What looks like injustice from the human perspective might be perfect balance from the soul perspective. Your job is not to judge, control, or demand specific outcomes. Your job is to heal yourself, Trust the process. Do what's yours to do. Release attachment to how balance must look. Remember that energy-seeking balance is as inevitable as the sun rising. This does not mean accepting harm passively. It means fighting for justice from empowerment, not from victim consciousness. And it means knowing when to let go, because your peace matters more than watching someone suffer. If you are struggling with injustice, with waiting for balance, with releasing the need for revenge, I'm here to support you through that process. Information about my mentorship is in the description link below. Trust the process. Energy is always moving toward equilibrium. Always. Until next time.